Welcome to Friday, TGIF. It's December 19th, 2025. Your Day with a Podcast brought to you by the Advocates Injury Attorneys. If you've been injured in an accident, don't face it alone. Get an experienced local Wyoming attorney on your side. Free consultations at WyomingAdvocates.com or call 307-800-1952. You deserve an advocate. Well, more wind, a little taste of winter. Another high wind event today across the region, although it's not going to be of the intensity of the one we had earlier in the week. Nonetheless, be ready for more turbulence, as you can see in those rolling clouds of the Kelvin-Helmholtz waves there in Colorado Springs. Had more of those show up here over the last couple of days. So we're going to have to deal with the wind. And after a cooler day today, many of you, especially in Wyoming and Colorado, will be feeling warmer temperatures as Chinook winds and Pacific air replaces the cooler Canadian air that snuck in yesterday. However, there's a bit of whiplash because the next Pacific wave coming through is going to drag the jet stream a little further south, allowing temperatures to go right back down again Saturday. And I want to caution travelers tonight and tomorrow in Montana and Wyoming and into parts of northern Colorado during the day Saturday. We're going to have a little more weather than I think a lot of weather forecasts that are out there are indicating, and nothing major. But if you're going to be driving over the interstates, over the mountain passes tonight and Saturday in Montana, Wyoming, and northern Colorado, pay attention. There's going to be a little bit of weather with this Pacific wave. Colder temperatures will invade Saturday. Then, as we get into Sunday and Christmas week, temperatures along and east of the divide especially really warm up as we still have the North Pacific blocking pattern. But there are subtle changes, very subtle changes to the block, which is going to lead to weather Christmas week for some of you watching this video. But for a large portion of you, you're going to have very mild, dry Christmas week weather, but not for everybody. And we'll show you that because a storm system is going to come down the California coast and kind of stall out. And this is going to push weather into the West Coast and into parts of the Intermountain West, especially Christmas Day. And we'll show you that here in a moment. Lots of good lenticular clouds, and you can see the 22-degree halo there, if you look real closely, around the sun. With the high winds aloft, today will be another day of a lot of lenticular clouds and a lot of wave activity along that. Some iridescent clouds there in southern Colorado along I-25, and there's a beautiful shot looking east from near Centennial, Wyoming, of the wave clouds downwind of the Snowy Range Mountains. And California is starting to see increasing clouds. Get ready, California. You're going to get some really wet weather. Your Christmas Eve and Christmas Day is going to be quite stormy along the West Coast. And believe it or not, there'll be parts of the desert states that have cooler weather than areas east of the divide this coming Christmas holiday. Some high and mid-level clouds there in northwest Colorado, and another halo, this time in the Upper Platte Valley near Saratoga. Satellite imagery this morning shows a subtle shift of the atmospheric river pattern that's been coming in to the Pacific Northwest coast for days. Notice it's not coming into British Columbia and Washington, so there's a subtle southward shift. If you look real carefully, these satellite photos will give you clues. There's a pocket of colder air aloft right here with an upper level low off the coast of British Columbia. This pocket of colder air is what's going to translate east-southeast just like this tonight and during the day Friday. This pocket of cold air aloft is going to lead to instability, and that's going to lead to the more active weather pattern tonight and Saturday, even in some portions east of the Continental Divide. And you can see that really well here in the water vapor. See those speckles? That tells you the atmosphere is unstable, which means it's going to want to produce weather. The atmosphere in there is cold, it's wanting to go up, and as it hits the higher terrain of the Intermountain West and the Pacific Northwest, it is going to be a weather maker. Then there's just a straw sucking Pacific moisture with those strong jet stream winds right into the Pacific Northwest. And you can see the tight pressure gradient. There's your little upper level low we showed you on the satellite image. The winds aloft, screaming along again. They're not as strong as they were earlier in the week, but nonetheless, we have strong winds that are perpendicular to the Continental Divide. So when it comes in at an angle like that, you're going to get very strong winds in the wind gaps especially the gaps between the mountain ranges, your canyons, your river valleys exposed closer to the mountain ranges. And there by Saturday morning, you see how it's shifting south? With that southward shift, so will the weather go. And you're going to see that here in a moment. So when we show you the map of winter weather conditions across all the United States, lake effect snows, as that Arctic front is going to bring more cold to the Great Lakes in the Northeast. Winter weather advisories continue for the Dakotas and northeastern Montana. Winter storm warnings for the Cascades. More flooding concerns along the West Coast. Winter storm warnings and winter weather advisories for Wyoming's western mountains. The mountains of northern Colorado and southern Wyoming under advisories. And the northern Wasatch, yay! Ski areas in Utah are going to get some snow out of this. And, of course, I don't need to tell you what the brown is. The brown is for high wind watches and warnings. The pink is for red flag warnings of high fire danger. So same old, same old. And there's your wind gust potential through tomorrow morning. As I mentioned, it's not as big of a wind event, but it's still a lot of wind that we're going to get through over the next 24 hours. Now through Sunday, that strong moist flow is now going to get into northern and central California. Some very heavy snows for the northern Sierra, good for the snowpack there, and the snowpacks in Washington and Oregon. There you can see the snow or rain shadow east of the Cascades, but there's still going to be a good fetch of moisture and instability getting over the mountains. Hence, more snow for Wyoming's western mountains. And what I want to show you is kind of this area right here. Okay, if we take a look at where that instability is going to go that I showed you, tracking right across there, notice it's going along Interstate 80 here. Southern Wyoming into Utah, then across into northern Nevada, then into California. Weekend travelers, starting really later today, but especially Saturday and Sunday, if you're traveling that route, you're going to have some occasional winter weather. And with colder air leaking south, this area right here, you're going to get a little winter weather. I would not be surprised, especially up here, to see some light snow accumulations tonight and early Saturday. Nothing to write home about, but enough to really make roads and highways a bit icy. So you can see that there. This is the snow potential between now and late Sunday. And if I focus in, the I-90 corridor and the I-25 corridor right here, watch out for just a little bit of snow. Then along Interstate 80 as well into Utah, then further on westward. So a little bit of weather. It is going to be colder Saturday, so roads will be more wet and slick as opposed to the last wave that came on through. And there's your instability. This is the K index, which represents the instability right along that line. I've mentioned the possibility of snow squalls, and I certainly think that's going to be a possibility with that instability during the day Saturday, especially right here. So for you skiers in Colorado, that's where you can get a whiteout on the ski slopes. You're looking at the sun being out, the next second you can't see 10 feet. Then the sun comes back out again. I could definitely see that in the ski country of Colorado this weekend, mainly during the day Saturday. So here are the subtle changes that are going to be developing Christmas Eve and Christmas Day. Here's your high pressure ridge that's been semi-permanent along the Aleutians there, but it's a little bit more east, just a hair more east. And that's going to allow the cold, moist air out of Canada to come and now move into areas off the west coast. This is what's really interesting. The pattern has been with the block for the weather to go this way. But the weather now is going to go this way. And what that means is this part of the country right here continues to miss everything. And we can take that back really here to the Front Range of Colorado and Wyoming as well for the most part. So now what we're looking at is all the weather directed this way. So what's going to happen is this low is just going to settle down and come down along the west coast. This is for Christmas Eve morning. Onshore flow will bring Pacific moisture and very wet conditions into the Pacific Northwest and California, but also even into the desert states. It's just bringing moisture in and instability, and it's going to make it wet there. Downsloping winds east of the Continental Divide and warmer air coming up into here around the high means a very mild Christmas Eve and Christmas Day right here. Very warm, but cool and wet along the west coast. By Christmas noon, roughly, on Christmas Day, notice there's a southward shift, but there's a consolidation of the low a little bit. But I want you to pay attention right here It's very subtle, but notice the colors change from a brown color to a red color. The trough is sinking a little bit more south and east, bringing colder air aloft more into the Great Basin and areas west of the Continental Divide. And we continue to have strong onshore flow around that low off the Pacific into California and in the Great Basin and the Rockies. So that's going to drive some weather into the West Coast and the Continental Divide. This is for the 4-day period of Monday through Thursday. So this is Monday through Christmas Day. This is what will happen during that 4-day period. So you can see, look at all that. Even Las Vegas is going to have a cold, rainy Christmas. California getting a lot of rain, a lot of snow in the Sierras. And we're seeing some of that moisture get pushed into Utah, southwest Colorado, southwestern Wyoming, western Wyoming here. Notice there, it's like a straight edge here. You get east of the Continental Divide, and look at this. There's just nothing. So that's where that warm, brown Christmas is going to be. So if you're west of the Divide, you actually have a chance of a white Christmas or a wet Christmas, depending on your elevation. Now, snow levels are going to be pretty high because of the strong Pacific influence and almost no Canadian influence into the mix. That being said, and we'll talk more about this Monday, there is going to be weather if you're heading anywhere west of the Divide, whether it's Boise, whether it's Las Vegas, anywhere in California, anywhere in Washington and Oregon, and anywhere down into central and northern Arizona. What happens after Christmas Day? Good question. These subtle changes in the blocking pattern is wreaking havoc on the long-range modeling. So we'll talk about through Christmas right now. After Christmas is a different ballgame. But we are going to have weather next week over here. Over here, if you're looking for a white Christmas, very sad. If you're looking for snow in the mountains for Christmas Eve and Christmas Day, if you're a skier, you're happy. There's your snowfall total for that 4-day period between Monday and Christmas Day. So you can see there's areas of snowfall coming through the Great Basin and parts of areas west of the Divide. So we may have a little bit of winter weather here along Interstate 80 in sections Christmas Eve and Christmas Day. Don't forget our regional travel forecast, updated at 3 o'clock every afternoon, Monday through Friday. Weekend updates as needed. Have yourself a great weekend. We'll see you Monday.